welcome to the Girl Take No podcast. I am your host, Shaunie Sanders, and today I have a special guest with me. This is Crystal O'Connor. She is the founder of the Moxie Entrepreneur and Moxie Media Solutions. She's also a published author, and we're so glad to have you on the show. Crystal, how are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm great, and I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a good conversation. I feel like I've been interviewing a lot of people, but I feel like you're probably the first guest that I get to interview that actually talks about going from full-time employee to full-time entrepreneur and kind of embodies some of that, because all my guests have been entrepreneurs. They all have taken the leap, but I think you kind of hone in more on it when looking at your profile and reading things about you. So I'm excited to have this conversation. But before we get into any questions, I always like to ask my guests to give me the story behind the brand. Give me the story behind the Moxie Media Solution, a Moxie Entrepreneur. What made you decide to do it? Entrepreneur, what made you decide to do it?
Okay, so I have a background in education, elementary education, and when I had 3 kids in a span of 2.5 years, I realized I'd chosen the wrong career because leaving my kids, my newborns, to make just enough money to be with other kids, to pay a daycare, to watch, it didn't make any sense at all to me. So that was one of the reasons why. And then I found myself, so I stayed home with my kids until they were about 5. And then I found myself divorced shortly after. And then I realized I had to make a lot of changes with my income. It just seemed to never be enough, but yet I worked for a TV station in sales. I worked with small business owners. I wrote commercials. I was sometimes in commercials, voiceovers, and sold the commercial. I was working a lot. And they always seemed to change the commission structure so that I couldn't break past this $80,000. And I kept asking myself, why can't I make ends meet?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And so it just seemed like nothing I did was enough. And I knew what I needed. I would sit down and run the numbers. I knew what I needed a month. But I didn't see myself getting out of it until I made a certain amount to put away. And so I heard somebody left these little CDs. Remember CDs?
Yeah, CDs. Oh my God.
Somebody left these CDs at the office and said, oh yeah, you can have these if you want. This guy came by and he was selling them. And it was Brian Tracy. And I would pop them in the car. And one of the things he said that really just sunk in was, you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I had never heard it. And I'd never really thought about it, but I thought about it long enough to actually start, without even consciously realizing, I was starting to notice and take note of the things that he was putting in my head. And before I knew it, I was seeing and hearing things differently. I was seeing opportunities. So I started taking steps towards the opportunities. For instance, here I was struggling to get by. By the way, I had bought a home with a really big interest rate. I made some dumb moves. And so that was part of the reason. Another thing that I hadn't even realized, because, silliness, they were taking way too much out of my check. And I didn't even realize how much I was paying in taxes when I didn't have to. Just things like that was hurting my cash flow. Anyway. Getting back to, I heard this commercial on the radio, and it was for a weekend, learn real estate, flipping properties, and it was by a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. And I went to it, and I ended up writing. It was actually a luncheon. It was free. It was like, yeah, I want to learn this. I want to learn what they're doing. And I wrote a check out for $500 when I really didn't have it. And I went to this weekend, and the next thing you know, I was able to transform my whole life. Like I'm not even exaggerating. And here's why, because it changed my way of thinking. So it was a complete paradigm shift going on in my mind. And I realized I have to do what they're saying. And I did flip a couple of properties. I went from struggling, and I found $25,000. And most people would say, well, that was really stupid. Here you are broke, and you just gave the Robert Kiyosaki $25,000. Okay, but here's what it did. And I also want to say this. as I was learning real estate, I was more interested in what I saw the woman doing in front of us. So the whole weekend, she's teaching us all these concepts and about credit and about getting your credit score up. There's just a lot that I learned there, but in passive income. But I kept thinking at the very end, she was a teacher, by the way. She had been a teacher.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that she did was she so beautifully closed. She closed about like 50 to 70 people, so she sold $25,000 to 70 people.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there calculating that. And
right?
I'm thinking, I like the math on that one better than me going around looking for properties and climbing underneath, cobwebs with the flashlight. And I was doing a little bit of both, but I kept thinking back to what she had done. And I thought, she just sold information. Mm-hmm. She sold information. Yeah. So what could I do? And then I went ahead and in that time of looking for investment properties, I was really having a hard time finding the investors. So I made a couple of mistakes by making offers on homes and not being able to find the investor. And I thought, I know, I'll get my real estate license and sell commercial. And then I did, by the way, and was selling commercial. And then boom, 2008 happened and I noticed LinkedIn. I noticed social media. Yeah. I noticed YouTube. And I'm like, what is going on? And I was invited to a bloggers group meeting. Didn't know what a blog was, but I went because it was at Panera and I wanted a coffee. So I'm standing around with my coffee, and nobody really likes networking, right? And I'm listening to all these little these nerdy looking guys like talk about blogs. And finally I was like, hey, what's a blog? And funny thing about that is I didn't even really know what a blog was, but yet the Des Moines Register was there, that's the city I lived in, and took a picture of me, and I was in this group of people that said the bloggers of Des Moines, and I didn't even know what a blog. That's
manifestation right there.
Yeah, so the guys at the office made fun of me because it was like, you're a blogger now. And I'm like, well, I just learned what a blog was. But at that meeting, I asked someone to put a blog up for me, paid him like $800 for a WordPress site. And I thought I was going to use that for investors and finding investors and continue looking for properties until people started to leave the meeting. I sat down with my laptop to talk to this guy about my blog. And as I'm looking, I see Allie Brown. And I don't know if you know who she is. I'm watching her and I'm just mesmerized. And I'm like, she has got the video, and she's like, and I'm like, I want what she's having. It was again, someone selling information. And I'm like, I can talk and I got a lot to say. So I thought, I'm going to have my blog. I want to do something. I just didn't know what it was. Yeah. And so I bought a course from her, and I thought, okay, I get it now. I worked in the TV advertising. I've done nothing but sales and marketing. I'm going to teach it to small business owners and teach them how to use all the new bells and whistles online. Yeah. And that's what I did. So I just had an anchor event, what I called an anchor event. And back then it wasn't a video, a live stream or like this. It was a phone number. And by the way, I spent 4 hours one night. I'm not like real techie, but when I want something, I figure it out. I figured out how to get a little opt-in using the code on my Facebook page. And back then, a lot of people didn't even know you could do that. I came across this YouTube video, and I don't know why it took me so long, but I remember being at a friend's house in her bedroom, and she was bringing me glasses of wine. I was like drinking that wine, and I was like, and I finally got it to work. And what it was an opt-in, and I put on the little title of it, meet me on Wednesday at such and such times, like 7:00 or something. People would get on my list, and then I would send them an invite email to jump on that call the number, put in this code, and I would just talk. And I didn't know who was on the call. I just knew, I could see that there were people, but I didn't know who they were. And I talked about money, and I talked about marketing and making more money and income streams, because I learned that from Robert Kiyosaki. By the way, I played that cash flow game with my kids. We loved that game. I just talked about things like that. And then it came to a point where I was like, I gotta make money doing this at some point. And commercial real estate, by the way, in 2008 was horrible. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So
I remember that.
I was like, I got to make some serious changes, and started taking actions before I had felt stuck. So I rented out my condo, and so had someone else pay my house payment, and I went and found a big, beautiful home, and the kids were like, wow. And I was like, yeah, that all I had to do was take some steps.
Yeah.
And so I put up so I was having the anchor event, I put up my blog, and I thought, well, I'm going to do a lot for them because I bring a lot to the table with regard to information. So my first product was $6,000. I gave them a WordPress site. So I found someone to put up the WordPress site for them. I wrote the pages. So I basically taught them everything I was doing. So depending on what their expertise was, I would use that. I would sometimes do the work for them. They got a lot for $6,000.
Yeah.
They got a lot. Because I would sit and do some of the work for them. I would set up all the technical, the opt-in. I would create their giveaway. I would come up with their anchor event. I would title it for them with a hook. I would teach them about hooks. So we would meet once a week. And then in between, we'd do some work on their site. And basically, I would create a business for them. And so I made 6 figures, broke past the ceiling that I felt like was there in corporate. I did that in about 9 months or less. And that changed everything. So then I was like, what do I do to get to the next level? And then it became group. So, and then building funnels for people with their emails, writing 7 to 10 emails in 10 to 12 days, depending on what they wanted to sell, pricing and packaging and promoting it. And yeah, I just did all of that within a year. I had totally transformed my life. And I never looked back.
I think that is so amazing because you were able to do something that one, like selling big ticket offers and stuff like that and lead generation. We didn't even know anything about that during that time because that's like before everything was so automated now. It's almost like everybody's doing it now. But I think back then it just says a lot about how you were able to identify something that you can do and be able to package it and sell it and use a phone number for people to call in. Like right now today, I bet people couldn't even fathom calling in and just listening in on the phone.
And just listening.
Yeah, versus just watching. But it worked because that was our form of communication back then. That was a way for us to connect back then. And
well, so I knew when I saw in that workshop that many people, there were like 150 people or something there in that workshop that Kiyosaki had brought in. And I thought that's a lot of people that are also interested in making income streams and expanding, their life and lifestyle. And so I knew that I could teach the same thing and get the same kind of people on the bridge line. We called it a bridge line back then.
Bridge line and just selling information. That is so true. That made me think about it now because I get a lot of people that call and ask me about podcasting. You know what I mean? A lot of people that want to podcast and want to do it and, ask me a lot of questions. And I've been thinking about, well, maybe I need to package this and maybe try to, sell it in a formal way for people who want to start podcasts and stuff like that and different things that I've learned and techniques and a lot of tools that I use to really help me automate my business, So I was just thinking about that myself. What made you choose the word Moxie for your business
When I was in sales, there was an older guy that would call me Moxie because I would hit all the sales numbers and I was horrible about going to the meetings, but I would bring in, see, that's another thing about me that I look back and think, no wonder I was a bad student. I didn't like to sit still. That's mostly what it was. And I was more extroverted and I like to, stay busy. And so when I discovered sales and how good I did at sales, I realized that I could get away with things because I was the best salesperson. Like if you are the best salesperson, you get away with things. And so that was helpful. but I remember a guy calling me Moxie and I remember thinking, what is this word? I think he told me or something. And so I actually used alliteration. I used Moxie Mompreneur for my first website. And I've never said this out loud before, but maybe I've told a couple of friends, so I'm going to say it right now. This is really funny. I changed it to Moxie Entrepreneur because I had a boyfriend at the time that he said I was spending way too much time on my business, and he went into my account and hijacked the name Moxie Mompreneur and said, until you, And I was like, oh, he's like, until you come over and start spending more time with me, I changed the password, you can't get it. And he thought it was real cute and funny. And I thought, okay. So I completely changed the name. I said, you can have it. Now you own Moxie Mompreneur. Have fun with that. And we broke up after that. But
Of course.
She took a couple of other, I used to own Moxie Talk, and he sold that. That was a really good one. That was going to be the name of my podcast. But here's the thing. I had tunnel vision, and tunnel vision really works. If you can become obsessed with something and, not in an unhealthy way, but just really focused, that is what a lot of people just need, and they don't realize the power of it. And if you can, like, just 2 hours a day, we're not talking like 24/7 necessarily. If you could take action 2 hours a day, that makes all the difference in the world. And anyway, that's that. So Moxie Mompreneur, then it became Moxie Entrepreneur, and it didn't sound as catchy, but that's just what I kept. And by the way, I stopped using, that's not where I'm sending people. I've actually started a new company called Rich, Fit, and Happy. And here's one of the reasons why, because Entrepreneur Magazine is suing people that use the word entrepreneur. Yeah. I don't want to be sued. I don't really like the name that much. So
I like the new name though, because you want to be fit, you want to be healthy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I like it.
Well, it's not that I wanted to get rid of Moxie. I'm talking the word entrepreneur that Entrepreneur Magazine, wants. And so that's fine. I still use the term Moxie, but I still own a lot of domain names with Moxie in it. But Rich, Fit, and Happy is about getting Moxie and staying Moxie. And that means energy and pep and knowledge, staying on top of it, but also feeling good while you're doing it. And it gets harder as we age.
Who you telling? Like Crystal.
So so the reason I transitioned, and so there are 3 pillars to Rich, Fit, Happy, and fit. The fit part and the health is actually one of the most important things in the program. Yeah. We talk about hormones, and I found someone that I think is going to be an excellent fit because of her knowledge. And she has a clinic that she's opening in Nashville. Actually, you don't have to be in Nashville to work with her, but I'm bringing her on board as a voice because we've been lied to in so many ways about HRT and how when our estrogen dips, what are we supposed to do? When you feel awful, you can't keep going and have Moxie in your step. So, I've been learning from someone I feel like just knows so much, and I tend to listen to those that are not the most popular. Here's what I mean by that. I have noticed that when something is super popular and I was going to use an example, but for instance, I'll just say this. Estrogen has been for the last 20 years or so looked at as this bad thing, but it's actually not having the right levels of estrogen hurts us tremendously. It's actually causing a lot of health problems. It causes depression. Giving a woman with low estrogen an antidepressant, how is that going to fix the problem? The problem is we've got way too much, or we've got not enough rather, estrogen, and it's hurting our hair, our skin, our nails. Sure, we see that, but then our mental state, our heart. So basically every organ for us women, estrogen protects.
Okay.
That's the truth. Brain fog, being able to think sharply. We need estrogen. So doctors are afraid to give estrogen because of a clinical study that wasn't even done right 20, 30 years ago. And so we're paying the price. We've been lied to in a lot of ways, but that's when I started listening to her when she was going against the grain and explaining why, going deep and explaining why. And I was like, I like her. We're going to talk about this more. And so hours and hours I've spent on the research that she's telling me, the research she has actually had funded, and it's been enlightening, and I want to give that same hope to others so they start feeling better, because I know that a lot of women are going to hear me say this and go, why would I want a period for the rest of my life? Okay. The reason I believe that women say they wouldn't want a period for the rest of their life is because they've had a bad period. That's why, because they have the bad periods too, and you probably didn't expect me to talk about periods today on your show.
Listen, I have a show coming up where we're talking all about menopause. So,
oh my God. Okay.
It's a big topic.
I gotta be on that show. I got a lot to say, but estrogen and higher levels of estrogen and basically preventing menopause is not talked about. What's talked about is managing the symptoms so that you're just getting by.
That's
and
exactly
not feeling like, if you're not feeling like suicide, then you're doing good. It's like, no. We want to thrive, damn it. We want to thrive and feel amazing. And guess what? You can. You can. So we need to stop being afraid of estrogen. It's not linked to cancer. The lack of it is linked to cancer. There's a lot of evidence to point to that too. So I would love to talk more about that.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting for sure.
And the prices need to come down too, so that people can afford it. We all deserve.
Oh my God,
it. It's crazy.
I mean, you could have a whole show talk about the price of medications and stuff like that in this country. Like, it's just off the charts. It really is.
Yes.
What I want to ask you is that, so listening to your history in terms of like you've been able to pivot to different careers, it seemed like throughout your life. When did you know it was time to make that shift to like, okay, I can really stop working, you know what I mean, from somebody else and really now focus on myself? When did during that period, when did you realize that?
Probably when I started selling $6,000 packages online and working from home and having that flexible schedule.
Yeah.
You know, and all I wanted was that flexible schedule. And then, and not miss any of my kids' things like cleaning my garage. I was telling you before you hit record the story. So now everyone listening is like, what? But I just wanted to not be so stressed out and barely getting by. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel until I started working for myself, because I knew that, and I want to like what I do.
Yeah.
And I noticed, and I didn't ever completely realize this, but I noticed that when I'm in charge of everything, and I don't mean everything, but when I'm in charge, I will get it done. So what motivated me to do all of that was freedom. I love freedom. And I love being able to work when I want and take a vacation when I want. And all of that goes along with that. And so that actually, you've got to be disciplined to earn that. So I was able to be disciplined when the reward was big. And I didn't realize that. Like when I was an employee, I was just like going along with the flow and not really into it. I wasn't given the ability or the reins in the creativity department, and it was just like blah. And so that, you know, I wasn't ever really, they didn't give me anything to feel motivated about. So freedom was my motivator. I don't know if I answered your question though, hon.
Yes, you did. You did. Definitely. Yeah. That's what it was. Freedom. And you sold your big ticket offer, because a lot of people who are still working and kind of like have their little side hustle are looking for that moment where they can completely make that shift. And it could be, okay, I hit this financial goal in my business and now I'm able to take that leap. And then there's some people that are like, you know what? I just didn't like the job anymore. I just took it. I didn't even have any money coming in business, and I just took a leap of faith. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's always interesting to hear when people decided it was time for them to do that. And so what was it like for you? Was it scary for you to make that, to leave that? I guess we think about our jobs, we think about it as so quote unquote stable and it's, you know, it's a steady check. Was it a scary thing for you to say, okay, I'm going to have to work hard in this because I got to do this myself, you know, versus having this check that I know is coming every 2 weeks?
Yeah, there were moments that I was scared, but I will say I had the real estate license, and so I continued selling, but it was taking too much of my time and people were wasting my time. And I remember on my 40th birthday, so it was like in 2000, and it was snowing like crazy, and by the way, I'd left commercial and kind of dabbled in residential. And I remember a gal she didn't want to put her house up for sale yet, but she wanted to look at all these properties, and it was like never ending with her. So I got a bad customer. And I remember it was a snowstorm. It was my 40th birthday, and my kids were at home waiting because they, you know, wanted to have cake with mom, right? Yeah. And I was calling them, texting them, and saying, you know, I'll be home. And yet there was another one. I was risking my life in a snowstorm to show this gal that she couldn't even show me respect to put her own house on, because when she wanted to make an offer, she really wasn't going to be ready because her house. So it was just like, I couldn't get her to see how disrespectful she was being. And I realized that happens a lot in real estate, and I don't have the tolerance for it. So that day, I remember thinking to myself, I had to change my mood or I was going to snap at her. I knew that. But I remember thinking, this is it. This is my last day. And I guess because it was my 40th birthday, I remember it so clearly. I was like, I'm really, really done now. Yeah. So I should thank this woman. Thank you.
Yeah. You're my motivation.
Exactly. And so that's when I really turned up the volume on my marketing and turned up the volume with my videos, because videos really help because it built more like trust. And I remember it was also closing about 80% or more of the people that I would talk to. Wow. I would give them payment plans too. And you know, I realized it was because, I come from TV and video helps people make decisions, because face-to-face business is really, really more powerful than just reading something. And I think that I was able to convey on video that know, like, and trust. And I would share enough, and I would hear a lot. I know that you know what you're talking about. I watched all your videos 5 times. And and I was like, okay, so before she made this investment, she watched my video 5. That was feedback to me. Yeah. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, I got to do more videos, because they're really needing that. Yeah. Powerful. And in TV, we used to say a potential customer needs to watch your commercials about 20 times, 12 to 20 times before it gets in their head, because it's programming. Yeah. You know, some of it is programming. A commercial, a 30-second, like, you know, you add music, it gets in your little brain there. Yep. And then it, like, but mine were more education based. Didn't add music. It was just me explaining things. And so education can be even more powerful.
Yeah, it can. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, or do you think you kind of just...
No, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I don't remember hearing that in school. Do you remember hearing that in school?
I don't remember hearing that in school either.
Wait, that was an option?
To be honest with you, it wasn't an option. So you just kind of fell into it, just started seeing things over the course of your life. It was like, hey.
I did fall into it, and I really didn't like being an employee, and I didn't realize it until I started making good money and realizing, gosh, I hated all those years of working. Yeah. Of course, I still work, but this is fun, right?
Yes.
It is. Talk to a girlfriend, like, this is fun. Like,
it is. Whereas, it's nothing like it. You know what I mean? Like you said, when you're an employee, it's like, I feel like when you're an employee, you're always trying to prove yourself, right? You always got to show your boss I'm committed, and you got to prove yourself to get promotions, to get raises. And it's just a struggle. But like you said, the freedom that comes with being able, you work harder, right? Yeah. But it's so much freedom, and it doesn't feel like work because you enjoy it. Yeah.
And so you get to choose the 5 people you surround yourself with. And that really goes back, like, it's like full circle now. That's one of the first things I said on this, remember? Like, that really hit home with me. And I realized that when I would sit in the meeting, that's why I would avoid the meetings, because when I would sit in the meetings, I had to look at people that I just didn't really respect. And here's why I didn't respect them. Yeah. I didn't want what they had, okay? Yeah. I wanted what Allie Brown had. I didn't.
Exactly, right?
They didn't have they were negative. Let me just going to say that. I remember them being some of the most negative people, complain, gossip, and I just was like, I'm so done with it. And I don't have to listen to that anymore if I don't want to.
Yeah. What inspired you to write the book, though?
Exactly. I mean, just writing a book was something that sounded like fun. And however, I do remember years ago as a kid thinking, I want to write a book someday, because I did love books. Yeah, yeah. But it seemed like a pipe dream. Yeah. But I made it come true.
You did. I feel like you have to be a good writer in order to write a book, right?
Yeah, because... and so I learned about that. Can I add something about that?
Yes.
I'm not that great of a writer. But
I'm not
my editor was, I will say this though, that I remember in high school taking a creative writing class, and it was like the only class that I ever liked. Only class I ever liked. So I did like it.
Yeah.
And my teacher did give me an A, and honestly, I think it's the only A I ever remember. It was like the only A, because I really tried. And I remember he would have me come up to in front of the class and read. And it was also like the only time that I did care about reading. Like I wasn't like afraid. Mm-hmm. Whereas in speech, God, I would have, like a coronary right before I went out. In college, you had to take a speech class and you go and you feel like you're going to faint.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
I didn't have that. So I had enough, I guess, to where I'm okay. If I had to write a, fiction, I don't know.
Yeah.
But my point in saying all of that was, I wasn't the best of writers. You don't have to be, but an editor does a really good job of kind of weaving your story and having it make sense. Because I was spending too much time until I found this editor that said, just give it to me. Give me what you got. And I was like, really? So I just started giving him content. And the outcome was like, what? I would have never, ever thought he would weave story after, or, there were stories that I gave him basically to explain my reason. Cause it's all true. But the way he wove it together, it was like one thing led up to the next. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I gave it to him, that's not how it was.
He's going to put it together to make it into an actual story in a book.
Well, like one chapter built
follow.
on.
Yeah,
one chapter built after the other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Let me ask you this: what was the mindset, and what type of confidence you have to just kind of like launch with a big ticket offer? You know what I mean? Because most people are like, oh, let me just kind of sit my feet in the water and just let me launch maybe $500. But you just decide to say, hey, I'm going straight for the gusto. I'm going big. So what was your mindset around that when you did it?
Okay, so probably because I had spent $25,000.
Yeah.
No, really, and I remember the first time I was with some gals after work, and I told her I did it, and I was like excited, and her face was like, oh, you should have done what? You should have done that. And I remember thinking, what? I shouldn't have? And I remember thinking, I can't be around that.
Yeah.
Nope, so I knew enough to like get away from that type of thinking. But to answer your question, darn it, what was your question?
What type of? Yeah.
So I guess because I had spent that and I saw the change that it made. It like busted me out of the whole lifestyle. So it's a paradigm shift. And here's the thing, money is relative. So Robert Kiyosaki probably doesn't have a $6,000. I don't know that for sure, but he might not. And back then, I don't remember seeing that as an option. Now he may have had some books or something for sale that were lower, but he didn't have any. He wasn't going to spend time teaching somebody such a high value concept for a lower amount. So he would think $6,000 was too small. See, so it all depends on what you think $6,000 is worth. Here's what I did know, and so this helped me too. I'm not going to sell junk, and scam somebody. That was it's not in me at all. So I knew that 6,000 it's a little bit of an investment for some people. It's a big investment for others, but what they're going to get is about 20 to 50,000, because they can make this, or maybe even if they do it with everything they've got, like I did, they can make 100,000. So I had that in my mind. By the end of that year, I had that in my mind, but I obviously didn't have it starting out. I just had the experience of the whole Robert Kiyosaki thing. And so obviously that did something to my mindset, because I've been asked before, not for a long time, but I remember being asked, why such a high, what made you think, that you were worth that? Like, because I could change their life because I just changed mine. Yeah. Like the information that I was giving, I knew could change their whole life.
Yeah. Because like you said,
and a college charges $20,000. Like a college charges $20,000, for a year sometimes. I don't know what it is nowadays. It depends obviously on the university. And there's no guarantee. I couldn't guarantee that somebody was going to run with what I told them to do, but they were faster to cash than getting a degree in art. I'm not laughing at a degree in art. I think a degree in art is amazing, especially now that you can sell things online.
Yeah. Were you always a confident speaker? Like, public speaking was always something you was confident doing? Because I know a lot of us, still me too, I still struggle when it comes to public speaking. You know, we all get nervous and stuff like that. But you seem like it just kind of just so easy for you. Were you always that way?
No. So this is all just practice.
Yeah.
Piano. If you played the piano and you did it every single day, you would eventually get good, and you'd be asked, "Were you always this good?" So when I said I would have that call, I would get so nervous before the call because I thought, what if they find out that I'm not an expert? But I would have to remind myself I'm an expert in what I'm talking about, right? And so I remember being nervous, and I remember, this is funny, you know how I said that you could see if people were on the call? Mm-hmm. Sometimes there'd only be one or two people, and I would be relieved.
I know this.
And then I'd ask myself, what am I, crazy doing all this to be relieved that only one person showed up? But that's how nervous I was.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, the first time I wrote everything down, and I caught myself almost reading it and thought, oh, I've got to stop. Like, that sounds horrible. Who's gonna, want to get on a call and hear somebody read from a book, or read from. So it was literally just practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, before I'm on a podcast, I don't feel like I have to memorize anything. I don't even prepare myself because I kind of have an idea of what they're going to ask, and I have enough experience to pull from that I can pull from it quickly. But, I have a daughter that I have two daughters that are very different, and one is more extroverted and words come to her easier, and one is not, and she is the introverted, cerebral, I don't know what you would call her, but she likes to play chess and she paints, and she keeps her circle really small, and she is not she does not understand why someone would want to take selfies and put them up of themselves. Like she's just different that way. And she has asked me that question too, and I say to her, just like with painting, right? You did it a little bit at a time, and you liked it enough to keep doing it, and then you built up. And now people look at her paintings and say, oh my God, it looked like I could pick it up off the page. And that was all just practice.
Yeah, practice. Did you know, so funny, I was going to ask you about, because I think you kind of touched on it. I was going to ask you, did imposter syndrome ever kind of sink into you when you started out? Saying like,
and it actually cost me a lot, and I could see it happening. Yeah. So, there is this concept of, what's it called? Like, see, I'm not pulling it very fast right now. Okay, so there's a concept where the human, we want to expand our life. So, it's the impression of increase. So there is this idea that the human wants to expand and grow. It's just how we are. I mean, we want to grow our lives. So we see things online, or we see in marketing something, and marketing, that's part of marketing. It's been known for forever that people want to expand their life. So there's the impression of increase. If somebody looks like they're increasing their life, we're more attracted to it. We're more attracted to, we want to know what they're doing. We want to be around it. It's just a natural thing. And so there were times when I would feel like I didn't deserve, because other people had these master's degrees in business and this, and I thought, I don't deserve it. What if those people start questioning me? But here's the thing, I'm just applying basic concepts and winning. But there was that part of me from my childhood, and some of it came from parents that didn't think highly of rich, or they didn't say the most positive things, and that got into my head. So I thought, am I being bad? Is this bad? Like, who does she think she is? I don't want to. So I would let that, and I don't anymore. I don't anymore, but there was a time I did, yes. And I had to work through it and I had to work on my mindset pretty much nonstop. And when I would feel that happening, I would join a coaching program. I would read books. And so I would really ask myself why that was happening.
Yeah.
And then I would ask I would find people either whether on YouTube that taught mindset, and I would educate myself so much so that I could break past that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's kind of like it's part of our childhood. It's childish.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it comes from
child
childhood.
in me.
Yeah. From things you heard growing up and stuff like that. And you just carry those things with you as an adult. And so mindset.
It could be innate. It could be innate. And I interrupted you. I'm sorry, honey.
No,
but
fine.
it could be innate. So, especially women, we tend to want to be part of the tribe. It's a tribal thing. Like we don't want to be isolated.
Yeah.
And you do start to lose friends because they don't get it and they don't understand what you're doing. They might watch you, but then, they stop connecting with you and it hurts your feelings, or you just no longer, you've worked on yourself to a point and elevated your mindset and it doesn't match theirs anymore.
Yeah.
And so before you find those other people and attract those other people, there's this gap of isolation that will really get to you if you let it.
I was going to ask that because, like you said, when you mentioned you're kind of like the image of the 5 people you hang around, right? And so I was like, I was going to ask you, did you have to lose some friends throughout that time? Because right, when you think about building something and those who are going to support you and those who just don't get it because they can't see themselves doing it and they just don't understand how you're going to do it, so always got something negative to say, you got to move them people off to the side where it's like, I'll be friends with you from afar. I won't share certain things with you. I still say hi to you and stuff like that, but not everybody deserves to be in that kind of inner circle.
Yeah. And I made the mistake of thinking, now that I've learned this, I want to teach like my friends and friends that I had my whole life. Yeah. And I just, the mistake I made was thinking that everybody wants this.
Yes.
But everyone has different blocks.
Yes.
Everyone has different blocks. And, I could free them. I could free up their time. I could change, they're only going to want what they want. I can't want it more than them. So
I get to that
to be a problem.
That kind of mindset too, where I'm like, entrepreneurship is really sad. People should do it more. And I got to realize, okay, Shaunie, not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur. There do have to be some people that work for the company too. You know what I mean? And those people, then those people love their job. They love working and stuff like that. And they don't have a desire to be a business owner or to lead an organization or anything like that. I have to remember that too, because I would try to encourage some friends where they're like, I'm good, girl. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And, I definitely didn't try to take and bring anyone that didn't want, but they would say they wanted it. And then I would see them sabotaging themselves. And then I would tell them, and they didn't appreciate being told by their friend. Right? It's different when you hire a coach, but when the friend, now there's like some competition issues coming up and we're looking at a whole different monster. Yeah. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Do you have clients that you have to help them kind of with their confidence, even with them like crafting an offer, trying to sell? Do you have to help them? Is that a part of it too, the confidence piece? Because you got to be confident in selling. You know what I mean? You really do.
Yeah. And by the way, did you know that estrogen helps confidence big time? Big time. And when your estrogen drops out and you start to lose your confidence, you need to check your labs. So I'm just going to throw that in there. But
that's good to know.
But if there is a lack of confidence simply because you killed your own confidence over the years of not following through on things. So we actually can kill our confidence by not taking action or not keeping promises to ourselves, like I'm going to show up on this podcast this day, no matter how nervous I am, no matter I'm going to do it. And the more you cancel or the more you change your mind about showing up on that day or speaking on whatever it is that you're avoiding, the more you kill your confidence. So the harder it's going to be to get it back. So the faster you start doing scary shit, the faster you start doing the scary stuff, the more confident you'll become. And you could have a bad situation too, like show up and fumble and you made yourself look stupid. Most of the time, we think that we made ourselves look stupid.
Yeah.
I realized that too. We think we made it and then we didn't. And so you need to do a self-check on that too. Like, what's that? Like, why do you start picking on yourself afterwards? Have you ever had a situation and then afterwards you like have this weird feeling and you're like, I shouldn't have said that. And you start picking on yourself.
Yeah.
That's a sign that something's off.
Yeah.
And
I've definitely had those moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we all have had moments where self-talk is bad.
Oh yeah. Like, I'm my worst enemy. You ask me. Me.
Yeah.
I'm the one that does it. I criticize myself all the time. And I'm like, and like I said, mindset is such a big thing I've been working on a lot this year in terms of like mindset, affirmations, manifestations and stuff like that. Just spending more time with my personal development, because being an entrepreneur, just even being an employee, just working on your mindset. It's like, just to have a better life is so important. And it does open you up to see the world in a different light when you're able to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there, I would catch myself. I still sometimes do it. I'll have an interaction at a store or whatever, and I'll say something and I didn't get the reaction, or think I'm funny or whatever, and get no reaction. And then I walk away going, okay, they think I'm crazy. Why did I say that? We all kind of have those moments. But
yeah.
I don't do it nearly as much anymore.
Yeah.
But I think it's good for people to hear that we're all human. We all have a certain level of it, but that can actually be changed by writing and visualizing. Visualizing yourself, the person you want to be, and changing your neurology literally by writing it, who you want to be. I am this person. So the I am is super powerful. And I wish somebody had told me that many, many years ago. I would have been a different person as a child. Oh yeah.
The I am affirmations are super powerful. You're right.
Yeah. It's like magical.
They really are. They really change your mindset and open you up. So what is some advice you would give another entrepreneur, another woman that wants to be an entrepreneur? What advice would you give her?
Well, I think service is probably your fastest path to cash. So if you don't have the funding, it's a good thing that you don't have funding, believe it or not, because then you won't waste a lot of money. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. I think there's a certain level of people think, oh, I want, I see Marie Forleo, or I see somebody doing what I want. Okay, but I want a set like hers in the background. I want this, I want that. All you need is a microphone and a light and a laptop.
That's it.
Or a phone. Yep. And start sharing some of your ideas. But you got to have a page that you're sending them to start collecting their information, because connection is currency. So think about it that way. If you're just throwing it out there in the ethers and not reeling them in and connecting with you on a face-to-face or a more of an intimate setting, because I would have consultations with people, and then on the consult, here's, I'm going to throw this in too. This is really important. So let's say you have a $6,000 program like mine, and it was 6 months long. They're going to give you $1,000 a month, and you've got what you're going to give them down. Well, you need to put what those pieces are, those benefits are. You need to put it on a page, and it can be a static page that is just up there. But when you get people on a consultation call using a calendar link or whatever, you want to go ahead and ask them if they're, ready to move forward. Yeah. And give them that. Because I had that sales background, and that was helpful to me. Yeah. And I would say, are you near a laptop? And then I would send them, I would send them to that page. And so I knew that we were both looking at it, and I said, see that page? I have 3 packages. I have package 1, 2, and everything that you told me that you wanted, I can give you in package B. And then I would pause, and then I would say, do you want to move forward today? Yeah. And if they said, I'm going to have to think about it, say that's okay. At least now you know. And by the way, I own the domain getstartedrightaway.com. Throw out that subliminal. And that's what was on that page. It was my package page. So then afterwards, while they were thinking about it, if they were, and some of them would say, yes, I want to get started right away. And they would I would charge $1,700, or maybe it was $1,600. And then the rest were broken up into payments. And that was to give part of it to the gal that was going to help put the WordPress site up.
Yeah.
But I would also send them an email, and I give people this email template. And in the email template, it was like gold, and it is like gold. So I would remind them everything that they said they wanted. And then I would say, I would use a line. You said you wanted this so that you could have more freedom. You said you wanted a website to make you feel more confident in what you're, selling.
Yeah.
And I would put so that. So the words "so that" are really powerful to people because they're like, because it helps them make a decision. It helps them do what they really want to do, but they're just struggling. So so then I would make a list of all the things that they said, and I'd put it in so that you can, so that it just reminds them why they're doing it, and then that would help. And then I'd put that link again, Get Started Right Away, and on that Get Started Right Away there was a payment link. That's helpful too. So what you're doing is you're really helping them make decisions, because we are overwhelmed as people, and we need help making decisions. So a confused mind doesn't buy. And if you think about McDonald's and you think about some of these restaurants, even Culver's, all these fast food restaurants, they know it. I don't eat at fast food restaurants, but I do like me a Culver's chicken sandwich every once in a while. But on the menu, you see packages. They have so many items, right? And they have packages, and it helps the mind. And so whoever taught them that, it probably beefed up their sales like crazy when they started helping us make decisions. I also worked with a guy that owned a photography studio, and I would help him with his packaging, and we used that same system. You've seen the system before, like when you go to a photographer's or you have a family session, and they put in front of you to help you decide, because you love all the pictures of your family. You want them all, right? But you've got to narrow it down, and these are so it's easier. You get 12. Package B is usually the most popular package, and it does end up being. So think about, like, what can you throw in your medium-sized package, and then think about a number in the package C, so A, B, C, that is so big that you just think to yourself, no one would ever buy that. And I put a $25,000 package, and in that package, I did sell some, by the way, and in that package, it was almost all done for you, and I taught them a little bit.
That's awesome.
Like the writing,
I like that.
the planning. Yeah.
I like the email because with the because it's like you're almost selling them on what they said versus what you trying to tell them.
Yes.
We had this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. They told you what they wanted, and you can get them that. And then the result of getting that website is going to buy you, it's going to make it easier for you to sell. It's going to get you to 6 figures faster. It's going to do this so that you can spend more time at the beach.
Yeah. So what do you currently have that you're offering now that you want the audience to know about?
Rich Fit and Happy. You can go to richfitandhappy.com. My gal's putting other pages, but right now it's just one page, and it's a year-long program. It's only $3,000 for the whole year. There are, I think, 3 payment plans is what we decided on, and we are just starting to roll. I'm just now talking about it, but in it are videos about health, wealth, and happiness. So the mindset stuff that we've talked about. There are lots of things that you can do to help you with ADD, for instance. There are nootropics. There are things that I've experimented that just amazing. We talk about health. We talk about how to make more money. And the little tip that I just gave you, like with the email and the static page and the, little domain, those little tricks is just loaded with tricks like that.
Yeah.
So how to make more money, how to manage it better once you start making it, and then the mindset and the health.
I like that. I really do.
A whole year's worth of it. Yeah. The idea is to completely transform your life in that year.
Yeah. And it can be done, which is so good.
Yeah.
Especially with someone like you who has a proven record of doing it.
Yes.
Oh my God. This has been a good conversation, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I talk a lot, don't I? Thank you.
Listen, but it's good conversation, and you dropped so much good information here that I don't see why anybody wouldn't now go and say, okay, I got to work with her because she has a proven record of doing it. She gives out a lot of good information, and it's like just me, myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so right. And what's so crazy? I tell people a lot. I don't think people still understand the power of email, because people think social media is just where it's at. They got an audience on social media and I got engagement. I got this and that. And then I'm like, okay, but how do you connect with them people outside of social media? How do you, go connect that, build that connection further? For a lot of people, social media is just where it is and where it stops from them. I was so surprised how the people have millions of followers and don't have any emails set up for them.
I would get a lot of people from my email list on a consultation, and they would confess that to me. And I'd look at their Facebook and they would have millions and they made no money. I'm like, that's because you're not asking for any money. You don't have these little systems down. It was shocking. Yeah. So sometimes it's the people without the millions of followers that are actually making the money.
Exactly. Remember that, people. Remember that. Okay, because before we close the show, this is a question I ask every guest that comes on. What was some of the best advice you received from another woman or just another person, if you can?
There's so much, but it was basically to charge more. Yeah. And when I say charge more, I mean in one-on-one.
Okay.
Because I have a $12,000 package that's one-on-one. So I'm going to say that because you're going to get to your goal faster. You're going to get to the lifestyle that you want faster.
Do you find out, I mean, I'm not trying to stretch it on because I'm like, I know I got so many other things, but do you find people are afraid to price things high simply because they feel like, okay, who's going to buy that? Do you find that, or do you find people more confident to do it?
Well, usually most people have already been selling when they come to me something. They're just not doing it right. And they don't have all the little pieces that are actually costing them thousands of dollars. If it's somebody that's just starting out, they need to work on their mindset. And once they get that and they start doing the writing, I have them do writing, visualization. It explodes what they think is possible. But also seeing a group of people that are making money and selling something, it really helps a person say, I can do that. I can do it better. I can give a lot more in terms of value. So and it's kind of like, if she can do it, I can do it times 10. Like it's okay. It's okay to think like that.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
Right. Surrounding yourself with people who are doing it motivates you, and it goes back to the people you're surrounded with. Listen, Crystal, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome. This has been a really good show. This has been a fun conversation. Had a good time talking to you. Guys, listen, I am Shaunie Sanders. This is the Girl Techno Podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.